This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
All right, today we have with us as a guest of the Balanced Advisor Podcast, Mr. Justin Bassell. He's been with Northwestern for 11 years as an advisor, and a fantastic one at that. He's been in leadership positions, CLU ChFC designation holder, and he's the founder of Systems on Purpose. More importantly, he's a family man, and he's also, full disclosure, a client of mine in the Make Time Method. So welcome, Justin, to the show.
Hey, Travis. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So, Justin, you and I got started a while back, and, we've had some great discussions about work-life balance. As that has evolved, as you've been working with me through this program, and now you are where you're at with your career, what would you say your definition of work-life balance is?
My definition of work-life balance is aligning your values with time. So what I mean by that is where I was before I met you, and why I knew I wanted to work with you was I knew that my time didn't align with what I really wanted to be doing or what was really important to me. And because of that, I think like most people who would describe themselves as, workaholics or, really focused on one area of their life, they feel like a creeping resentment. Like you don't have it in one day, but it happens over a period of weeks, months. For me, it was years. And what I now would find that is just aligning what I value with my time. So I try to audit that to say, hey, of what I prioritize of importance, am I sticking to that because I value it? And to me, that's when I'm defining, hey, am I really living life with balance? Or am I out of whack and just need to tune up again to what really matters to me?
I love that. I think you mentioned something to me also previous about this, of like what it means to have balance and be out of balance. Was there a time in your professional career where it was not balanced at all, and it was opposite of what you just described it?
Yeah, I had some times, and yeah, Travis, we talked about this. I think first off, I don't judge anybody that is going through that. I went through it, but it was because I wanted balance that I wanted to do something about it. Again, balance is more about aligning what you value with your time. For me, there was a time when I was in a leadership role. I was also an advisor. I had an assistant that was working with me to help scale my advisor business and my leadership business, but I really didn't learn how to be a great business owner and create the systems necessary. So that person was not really efficient at their job, didn't feel like they were growing. I was kind of running helter-skelter all the time. So my calendar was stretched such that in my last 3 months in that role, on paper, we were rich, but in what I valued, I felt very empty. And I only made it home 3 times in 3 months for family dinner during the week. And this was just after we had our first child, Crew. That's my first son. He was 1 year old at the time. And I felt like I was going into a direction that I was going to become the dad that was doing well on paper, but not really there. And I was just kind of embarrassed about that. And I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to be something more aligned with what I valued.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. It's so true for a lot of people who want balance. The irony with all this is that, you really wanted that balance. So you were making the sacrifice, but yet when you audited your time, when you looked back and you found you were only home 3 or 4 times in a month to be with your family, I mean, what was it that finally clicked? What was it? Was it that? Was it just looking back, going, "What has happened?" Or did something kind of slap you in the face to make you about face?
Yet there was, like, when I look back to what happened, like what was the moment where I woke up? What I would say is it wasn't so much that moment, but it did upset me. Like my assistant ended up quitting her job and moving on to what I viewed as not as great an opportunity. Having the benefit of hindsight now, I'm like, I kind of know why she left. I wasn't the best business owner at the time. I could have invested better in her development. But that was the time where I realized, well, that person was already taking stuff on my plate. I'm already stretched, worked to the bone. To start over in building that and fill the gap in the meantime, that seems impossible. All right, something's got to stop. But the truth is, it was this building feeling for a while, Travis, where I was thinking, what am I doing? Like I'm excited that we're being recognized, excited that in my career, I'm advancing and getting invited to different leadership trainings. I just wanted something that was more about, hey, when I was recruiting advisors into the business, I wanted to be more aligned to what my words were, because I was telling them you can come into this career, have massive impact, which was unassailably true, like no doubt. You could have great income potential. Got to work hard for that. But I was also telling them you could have autonomy over your calendar and your life. And I felt inconsistent when I would say that and when I wasn't doing it. So once she quit, I was like, man, I can't keep communicating this to other people without fixing my home base first. So that was definitely the moment.
Yeah. It's that incongruency that you're talking about, that inconsistency that psychologists like to refer to as cognitive dissonance, that you couldn't take anymore.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was incongruent with who you were. Well, that says a lot about you as a person, somebody who wants to change and make a big difference in the industry. And with advisors, like the fact that you were recruiting these advisors, what do you think, as you've been recruiting advisors, you've been in leadership position, and you've seen, as you've been advisor in a firm, in a broker dealer like Northwestern, where there are many who come to this industry for various reasons. What do you think is the biggest issue that advisors face trying to reach work-life balance?
Oh, what a great question. And man, we can have the whole podcast about this question.
Right?
It's not just advisor world, but the advisor world is a great example of it. Any business, when you're starting up, number one thing you have to do to make sure that the business can survive is generate cash flow and generate profit early on. You kind of know when you're starting something from scratch, there's so much energy in starting. So in advisor world, they put in all of these metrics for early productivity, and they focus on motivation and getting you started. And I think the intentions are good. So at Northwestern on the insurance end, in the first 6 months, they have a benchmark called Pacesetter First 40 insurance lives in your first 6 months. And that usually, the math on it, along with in the next 6 months, you do another 60 insurance lives. Those are good benchmarks, because if you do that, you're demonstrating that you're strong at your skill. And more than likely, you're generating cash flow so that you're going to be able to make it. Now, all that hard work and all that energy around recognition, after you get to a point where, okay, we're going to cash flow, now it's more about what niche do we solve? What is this going to be? Sometimes you don't take that next step, or even start with that step. You started the business. It's just pursuing the next recognition. And not that those things are bad. In fact, many times they're really helpful benchmarks. Especially if you're young, you don't have a family, they could be nice guideposts by default. But then you get down this path where maybe it's months or years and you're like, wow, this is a radical shift in the direction where I thought I wanted to go the day I started or in the months leading up to starting. So I think it's making sure that you're having, with these broker dealers and Northwestern included, just making sure that we have these guideposts to help advisors get started, have the right metrics to make sure they make it, but also to be in congruence with what they want the business to generate for their life. Now that's harder. It takes more work. It takes a lot of energy. I'm trying to do that with you, Travis, to make sure I'm consistent. But I think that's what leads to retention. And it's one of the things that gets me the most concerned about industry is if we're not retaining quality people that are putting blood, sweat, tears, time, dollar, and opportunity to get into this to serve. And we're only as industry keeping 9, 10, 11% for people that start year one that stay to year 5. I think that can be a really missing ingredient as to getting there, that the benchmarks are helpful, but are they really doing the job of keeping good people and developing good people?
Yeah, really great points there with, the good intention of recognition, getting people on the right path, the pace setter, first 40, and the next, 60 to get your first 100 lives in a life insurance focused, industry there. But still, as a financial advisor, that's a really good path to get started on at Northwestern. That's really good productivity. Yet what you mentioned to me is that sometimes that recognition becomes more important than the benchmark. And that is kind of a slippery slope, right? When we start patting ourselves on the back so much, we forget why we're in this industry. And yet the retention rates are ridiculously low. We could spend a whole hour just focusing on that. And a lot of, managing partners, managing directors I talk to, this is crucial to them. Like they spend so much time recruiting and to try and retain. And I've also heard that in 2020, this has been one of the worst years ever to retain people. They get them started, they get them going, and then poof, they're gone and no trace. That's a whole different animal. Yeah. However, I think this is what the industry is going to continue to face in some respect, is these uncertainties about the market, about the economy, about the industry, itself. What do you think is the key to, continue to motivate but also keep a good life balance for these new advisors and, for leadership? What's a better approach? Because you've been in and out of leadership. What's the better approach to take to try to motivate them?
Well, let me go to that point about 20 and the problems in the past. If you're an advisor and you call somebody and you say, hey, I heard about you from a friend. I heard you're a great person. I heard you're on an upward trajectory, and I think you should know about me and I should manage your life savings. Obviously it isn't exactly what I'm saying to a client, but most of us in the advisor world, that's really what we're trying to do. And you can imagine, if you're not an advisor listening to this, that more people say no than say yes. And if more people are saying no than saying yes, and you're quarantined, and you're going through this business for the first time, which means you're probably not confident in every layer of it, it's overwhelmingly harder than it might be. I'm going to put my butt in here though, but maybe that's the best opportunity now to change it, to really change the dynamics of how we onboard and how we develop. We focus more as an industry and as leaders in that industry on the tools advisors need to be successful in their practice, not just from a motivation standpoint, but more from the tactics, the how, and aligning their why of what's happening at home, what's happening with their hobbies, what's happening with what their spiritual life, with what this business can be a tool for to serve those buckets in alignment with what they're pursuing in their career. I think most people, because when you work in any business, time is zero sum. You can't trade time for more time. So they'll view, if you want to have a hobby, if you want to spend time with your spouse or significant other, your family, they almost view it in competition of developing you as advisor there. If they look with empathy and say, if it works out for both of us, you're productive for decades together with us in alignment with organization's key mission. So why don't we have an understanding of the key buckets in your life that you want filled, and how could this business be an economic engine for those things while also serving your community? It takes more work up front. But what I will make the contention is, I've been around long enough. Now, I haven't been around for decades upon decades, but I've been around long enough to know that it's better work on the front end than having to constantly recruit and replace and retrain people that are just not sticking. And even if, as an industry, we move that needle from, I'm a little on the number, I think it's closer to 9% retention. If we can move that number more like 20, and we're recruiting top talent, developing those people, and as we're doing 20, we can move it to 25. I think we make much more meaningful community difference. Also, we lead to more happiness in the workplace. It doesn't have to become we're pursuing recognition because that's all we have left. It's we're pursuing recognition because we view it as a responsibility to serve for all it gives us in return.
I love that. Yeah. And, as we've been working together, you're talking about hobbies and family and spending this time outside of work. What you're saying as part of the solution is exactly what you and I have been working together on to help create that, to think that might help to, retain, advisors. I think you're 100% right, because if they come in being fed this idea that they're going to have this lifestyle that they are hoping for, only to find out that it's not there at all, they're going to leave. They're going to try to find it elsewhere, and they're going to go independent, or they're going to do other things where these big broker dealers are making it, this one size fit all, almost that, family time and hobby time and personal time is in competition. That idea hits really, hits home, Justin. What would you say, being a veteran of the Make Time method, now that you've used it and you're, involved in it right now, how would you say this has actually helped you to keep that balance then?
Well, I'm consistent. I think in the past, like little sprints, and then I revert back to bad habits. I think now I'm much more consistent. So to give you context, I have 2 children, a beautiful wife, My wife, Catlin, my two sons are Poe and Crew. They light up the world. I love them so much. And I love that I'm consistent home by 5:30 to help put the kids to bed, to have dinner together. I feel very present and feel very full every day. Travis thinks I'm nuts, but I do triathlons pretty comfortably, and I want to keep doing that and doing it better than I'm doing, but not taking away career performance, not taking away from being at home with my family. It's allowed me to really segment everything together strategically to feel more full and collective are all working together to the goals. And it also, I really told you this, Travis, it's really helped with decision making, because I think so often I would make a decision in my business and thinking it just in the scope of my business. Is it good for my business? I think now in financial planning worlds, we talk about how integration is important, integrating insurance with investments, making sure you have a plan for retirement along with your children's education, along with your life insurance needs, with your disability needs. We talk about how valuable it is with the CFP textbooks about integrating those things. And that's why we paid to do those things. So not just to sell a product, but really to do planning. I think that this is very similar to financial planning for us, in that we integrate all of the buckets of our lives to make sure that we make good decisions as things come up. So if it offered to take on a new role in work, or if I want to do a race that's out in Texas, we have a guy in our group who we're going to do an Ironman this year. I'm going to force him, if he, as long as it aligns with his, but we're going to do something together. The decision making always goes through, does it pass through the priorities in my life, the buckets that matter to me, so that I make sure not just for that one thing, everything doesn't work. And I just think it makes me a better decision maker. I can make peace with those things much better.
Yeah, that's great, man, that you're seeing this not just as a time management tool, but a decision-making tool as you've learned this method that, is helping you. And I know there's plenty of decisions we're all dealing with as business owners, as financial advisors, how we can help our clients, how do we build our business, how do we market, how do we, fill in the blank. So I think that's really powerful, Justin, that's been important to you. And thank you for sharing that. A little bit about you.
Okay.
You do. Oh, yeah.
Can I add one more thing on that?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. The one other thing that I would say is when I started as an advisor, I was like really young, and sometimes I really have a good identity for myself. I wasn't as comfortable in my own skin. I think that this makes you a much more authentic person, that you're not living with FOMO. You're not living thinking, okay, what they have, what she has, what he has, that's better or worse than what I have. And I'm making cross comparisons and making that as a value judgment of who I am. I think in the world we live in right now, social media plays a role in that, but also just we compare a lot. This, I think, puts a better emphasis on my value and how I look at myself. It's much more in my shoes, that you've really given me that with this tool. How I view myself is more about what my mission versus someone else arbitrarily, that for me, or them pursuing that. And who knows? I mean, one of the things you taught me is, who knows if they're having that? You don't know. You have to pursue what really matters to you. So it's you more authentic. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that was in.
That was really important. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that authenticity is what most people are struggling with when they're feeling that incongruency that you mentioned at the very beginning of the cognitive dissonance you're feeling of living basically a lie, right? Trying to be this balanced person, recruiting people into this lifestyle, not being able to deliver. But that now that you're feeling that authenticity is is crucial. It's because you're living your values, because you're doing what you said you believe. And yeah, you're right. I mean, we live in a comparison, complaining world where we're oftentimes comparing ourselves to people inadvertently because of social media, which you're right, that could be a whole other show too. But man, I appreciate those answers. Those are really great. Better decision making, more authentic as a person. Moving to what you do in addition to financial planning, you also are an advisor to advisors. And you've created something that is very much aligned with what we do, called, well, you explain, Justin, you explain how this works, what you decided to call it and why.
Yeah. So one of the things Travis got me into was, well, you didn't do it, Travis. It was just freeing me up to be authentic and have these creative juice flow. So one of the things that I think as advisors we struggle with, we're not always the best business owners. Many times we're type A, want to go. We get a lot of energy from being with people. And we know that if we're with people, we have the potential to serve their best interests in their planning, their insurance investments. And as a result, we get paid. And then if we go to the next person and we go to the next person, we follow that. And more often than not, the organizations that we join, they invest heavily to allow us to do more of that, but also in motivation. And what gets lost in that is how to manage scale, how to take care of the systems so that as you're building the engine can keep going as it gets bigger. I found that I had a successful practice. We had clients, we were bringing in assets, we were doing insurance business, we were doing planning. I had so many people, and it was just on gusto, power alone of how I'm going to glue this all together to make it work. And so I found that the outlets to how to be a business owner of, okay, how do I manage the flow of the client experience? How do I integrate tech to help automate some of my more similar correspondence that I send out, get people on the calendar for reviews or for first meetings or for presentation meetings? How do I make sure that there's a flow of it? So I work with a lot of engineers. I'm the detail-oriented person in our office. I'm the Excel guru. Give me a complex problem with numbers, and I love diving into it. And what I found in working with these engineering firms, I found that they always had standard operating procedures of how they ran their businesses or how things were done. So one day, more for self-preservation in my business, I started creating how-to videos, just kind of like YouTube. I'm from South Florida. I grew up in Parkland, Florida. I have no idea how to do things around the house. That was taught to me by my father. I don't know. So any do things around the house, it's always YouTube videos. So I figured, okay, if I'm going to build standard operating procedures, I learn best from video format. Why don't I just demonstrate on the screen how to do that? So then I did one task and then another and another. And then I had this whole library of how to do things. So it became easier that if I was delegating something downstream or we were onboarding a new member, I could just send it over to them. And then I had a listing of how to do that. So my whole program is called Systems on Purpose, to build systems for advisors to help make their life and their business work more purposefully for them. I'm having a lot of fun with it because the more I'm speaking to advisors around the country, I realize the problem of having efficiencies in the client experience and running the business was not exclusively my problem. It seems like we all have this issue. So what I do with advisors is we have a lecture series that's video format. You can kind of see from the ground up how to build it. We give access to the how-to library, and then we have group meetings that we go ahead and code advisors to see how they're doing week to week. The reason I did a video format was that's how I feel like most people learn these days. But also everybody has a different tech journey. So I have friends of mine that are out in Greensboro. They see it one time. If I show them the video, they're ready to go. I have clients that are in Tampa that they need to watch the video 8, 9 times before they feel comfortable doing it. That way I can help all these people all at once at whatever pace they want to be helped that helps them adopt. So yeah, it was kind of, once I got into the Make Time program, I started doing this, and just because I had more time, and it felt very central to my calling of making a larger impact. And it allowed my wife to get a little bit more in our practice. She was, her practice in early childhood education. She was a kindergarten teacher. Probably she can tolerate me, Travis. But she would look at the lecture series and how I was teaching to make sure was I using correct learning techniques to make sure adoption would take place. And that's what I hope more for the industry, man, is I hope that whether it's me or other people around the country, we bring in people in education, help build out systems and processes for advisors. Because I think these advisors deep down, that's really what they want. But it's a missed opportunity in our business models, that if we can get that right, the tactics, the how to, the scale, and connect that why as well, I think we could have a much bigger impact.
I love that. No, I mean, you've been able to be so productive in your business. You're spending more time with your family, doing the things you love. This has added that creativity time for you so that you can create this other part of your business, the systems on purpose. I love it. Standard operating procedures. I love that you created that acronym out of it, and that you're really focused on how people learn, and especially advisors, like, advisors, you've taught them, you've led them. What a perfect person you are to present this to your firm, to the industry. I hope you kill it, man. I hope you are just able to bring this to so many people. And thank you for coming on the show and telling us a little bit about it. If people are interested, they want to know more about your systems on purpose, your standard operating procedures, how do they contact you? Where should they go? Do you want to just leave some of the LinkedIn, Facebook and stuff in the show notes? Or is there someplace else you'd rather direct them?
Yeah, if you connect with me on social, that's a really great way to get with me. Justin Bassell on Facebook, JJ Bassell on Instagram, Justin Bassell on LinkedIn. And I'll leave the link for the website for Systems on Purpose in the show notes, so that if you'd like to get into us to learn how we can help, feel free, reach out anytime. We're having a ton of fun teaching these advisors. Travis, when I did this, I never thought that it was going to be anything more than just it dummy proof for me, remembering how to do things. And the fact that we've been able to impact these other advisors, I had no idea that we were going to be in, as of now, we're in Los Angeles, Houston, Omaha, Philly, Greensboro, Tampa, Orlando. I can't even believe it, but I feel very privileged to be able to help people. It's fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today, Justin. Thanks for helping advisors have better work-life balance, and appreciate your time, making time to be here on the show.